Broadcasting live from the port of Carfell on the plain of Kaldheim, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham, and joining me is Cameron.
Hello.
Nelson.
Still here.
And Kathleen.
I'm back. I didn't think of anything to say. Changed my mind halfway through. Could you tell?
Nailed it.
And we are again taking a 1 week pause on part 2 of the Kaldheim Mythical Origins episode. Last week, I was not well. I'm better now. Hello. Thank you. Next week, we will do it for sure. But a whole bunch of stuff happened in Magic this week that it would be silly of us not to spend the time to talk about it.
So here's our lukewarm takes.
Before that, a reminder that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR for all of your Card Kingdom needs. They ship singles anywhere in the world, and they have great prices and excellent customer service and stupendously fast shipping to the extent that it is itself a meme how fast they are able to ship. If you ask them for a button, they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which right now says creature human, because you're all humans out there, we assume. And of course, this show is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And we thank you so much for doing that. Starting us off, there was a little sneaky tease of a ban announcement that Nelson and Cameron talked about last week that was in the information on the secret lair, because Uro was in one of the secret lairs, and when they're about to sell a product involving a card that's about to be banned, they decided quite nicely and correctly that they should maybe warn people about it. And they were like, hey, there's a banned and a restricted announcement coming up soon, and Uro's going to be banned in a couple formats just so that everybody knows. What we didn't necessarily expect, I mean, I guess maybe some of this was expected, but what we didn't know was that this was a weighty ban announcement.
Yeah, if you remove Uro from this ban, you've still got like a full salad and a side dish.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the banning announcements first, and then we're going to also look at Strixhaven, which is the new set. Well, it's not the next set's Time Spiral Remastered, but the next big set after Kaldheim, the next standard set after Kaldheim. But first, the bans. Nelson, what's going on over here?
Well, there's a lot of cards getting banned on one day. It was February 15th was the announcement date, and I think it went into effect right away. One card was unbanned. So why don't we start with that? In Vintage, the only change was Lurrus of the Dream Den is unbanned. Lurrus, of course, having to get banned because Vintage uses a restricted list, but that doesn't do much for the companion mechanic. The deck building only really requires you to put one in order to get all the value out of any of the companions. However, Lurrus was banned in Vintage before the update to the companion rule, where companions now cost 3 more mana and they have to get into your hand, so you're casting them from your hand now. And oftentimes you have to pass the turn with them in your hand, so they're sometimes up for thought seasoning. And so it's gonna bring this whole. Apparently, this big ban announcement is lunch. I guess I haven't eaten enough yet today, so everything's going to be about food. Anyways, so they basically said, I think we're going to try it. We suspect Lurrus will be okay with this extra 3 mana tax.
Right, I'd forgotten about that. I had forgotten that they fixed companions in that way. Okay, yeah. I guess that makes sense.
Before they had done that, I mean, they banned Lurrus in Vintage, but like before they banned Lurrus in Vintage, Lurrus was just in every deck. It was everything. I think except Workshops was playing one Lurrus, because why not? It's just a sideboard slot.
Right. There's literally no downside to running one.
Yeah, the arguments against putting Lurrus in your sideboard were much weaker than arguments for. But yeah, back to all these bans. So it's so many cards. It was 5, 10. It's 13 cards banned on the same day, which really I think makes the tucked information of Uro in the secret lair announcement seem a little better. Like a lot of things that happen, over the years, little announcements or pieces of information you get from WotC that make everyone's kind of heads jerk, or you have a little weird, uncomfortable knee-jerk reaction to something. It seems a little better as time passes, and this is one of those. Like I'm on the podcast last week with Cameron, and I'm like, this is really funny. Like, it's really silly that they did this, although it's nice before you buy that that Uro's about to get banned. But also just the fact that they teased out part of this ban announcement. In hindsight, it doesn't look so weird. It's like, look, you got to read a whole book to get through this ban announcement, so we'll give you the first chapter for free.
Yeah, they talked about how, over the year, just with the pandemic, there were fewer high-level tabletop tournaments, and so they sort of pumped the brakes on worrying too much about banning and restricting cards in formats that don't rotate. And this is them realizing that they maybe shouldn't have slowed down that pace of conservation quite so much. So this is a big like, okay. Let's sort all this out.
Right. It's like the hive mind is different, but it's still a hive. And a lot of people play these formats on the digital clients. And so eventually a lot of games do happen with high level players and whatever stakes are available, even if it's not as many Pro Tours.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we dig into the cards banned, starting with the historic format. Uro is banned, as we talked about. Omnath, Locus of Creation also banned, although that was just from suspended. So if you hadn't already gotten your wild cards from Omnath or Uro, because Uro had already been banned in standard, then maybe you got some wild cards. That wasn't a lot of people because Omnath had already been banned in standard and Uro had already been banned in standard. And so you don't get extra wild cards if they get banned in the subsequent format. This is pretty straightforward. Time passed and they were like, no, we're not putting Omnath into historic again. We don't need that. And Uro, I think, multiple different decks can play it. And we've talked about it plenty. I don't want to talk about it too much more. Repetitive play patterns, really strong. More reason to play the card than not if you're in any of those colors, and a lot of historic decks are. So I'm happy to see Uro go. Honestly, I haven't played a ton of historic this week yet, but I'm more excited to play historic, even though one of my decks is kind of gone. Probably not, honestly, but Sultai is probably still fine.
Now, what's happening in the world of Pioneer?
Now, this format I haven't played in forever, but I guess Teferi Time Raveler hadn't been banned yet. That's silly. I'm happy for Pioneer players. They no longer have to worry about Teferi. Also, Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer. I'm guessing since the printing of the Zendikar Rising modal dual face cards, it was a lot easier to put together an Oops All Spells deck.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, because now you can play, a bunch of tap lands or the mythic pay 3 life lands, get up to your required 4 mana to trigger your Oops All Spells thing, and then I'm not sure what they do in Pioneer, exactly how they win once they've milled themselves. I don't even know what it looks like, but usually you win that turn. Like the old one was like reanimate something that kills them.
Yeah, because you hit, what was Jubilation Angel in Legacy?
The old one is Angel of Glory's Rise?
Angel of Glory's Rise, yeah. Sorry.
And then the other humans are like Laboratory Maniac, and there's like a wizard from Kamigawa. This is a modern deck where you can tap a wizard you control to draw cards. So then if you just Angel of Glory's Rise those two back, you've got no library, and you draw a card in the library and you win with Lab Maniac. Or you can just go get a big thing with haste and trample somehow and then attack your opponent. That also works. But I'm not sure what they do exactly in Pioneer, but it's a lot of sets, fill your entire graveyard, and I'm sure there's some sort of instant win with Dredge. So
yeah, well, whatever it was, they're not doing it anymore.
I mean, whatever it was, they never even did it the first time. They just showed their opponent and then said, okay, so to game 2. That's the thing about all those games where it's just like, okay, I'm going to put all these cards here into this zone, right? And then I'll just show you what I do to win. Cool. And then if they're like, walk me through it, you're like, oh no, I got to play around the Path to Exile, right? Anyways, so I guess that deck was too strong. I'm sorry that I haven't played Pioneer since I got to work in a shop, so I just haven't run into it. I don't know. Uro is also banned, along with Teferi and Wilderness Reclamation, the 4-mana enchantment from Ravnica Allegiance that I think also has already been banned in standard and maybe historic as well. And yeah, just lets you untap all your lands at the end of your turn, so doubling your mana and being a really annoying control deck. It's a powerful card. So this is like some kind of unsurprising stuff for Pioneer, I think.
I mean, I think that Balustrade Spy is probably, I'm surprised that card is banned in anything because it's not super exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's like, good for you, little average draft common, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if these two cards are banned in anything else, but certainly this archetype has come up.
Out of curiosity, I wonder if it has anything to do with arena play, where in Modern, you could just show someone the combo and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. But if you're playing in arena, suddenly you're on several minutes of clicking accept.
Can you play Pioneer on Arena?
Not yet, although no, you can't. But well, it's still actually a valid concern, Cameron, because they have, I believe, announced in a previous, state of the game or whatever, that the goal is to get Pioneer onto Arena. Like right now we have Historic, and probably Historic will remain a format, I'm guessing, and maybe they'll start to put even older, weirder cards into it. But they do want to eventually have all the cards for Pioneer on Arena at some point. Now they might change their mind. We're obviously still waiting on that iOS client, but yeah, we're supposed to have Pioneer at some point. Yeah. Ian doesn't even mention how we win with Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer, but it's not the first time. There's been other formats, Modern and Legacy, have had Oops All Spells decks. So I guess this one is just, there's not a ton of interaction for it available in Pioneer.
Speaking of Modern and then also Legacy, Modern also had 5 cards banned, one of which is, say it with me again, it's Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Yeah, but what else?
We've got Field of the Dead, because we just had to slowly ban that card from every format, month after month. If you're not familiar, a good friend of Golos from, I believe, from M20 or M19, Field of the Dead is a land that makes a zombie, a 2/2 zombie token every time a land with a different name name enters the battlefield as long as you have 7 different names of lands. I believe I'm reading that right. Yeah, it also enters tapped and adds for a colorless. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, make it 2/2. So if you have a bunch of effects putting lands into play, this can just kind of remake you an army basically every turn, turns all your land finding spells into creatures as well. Or if you have like some kind of scape shift type effect, it can just put a whole bunch of power and toughness on the board at once. Also getting banned, this is the most interesting one to me, Simeon Spirit Guide. So Simeon Spirit Guide is from Time Spiral block. It's 2 generic and a red for a 2/2 Ape Spirit. Doesn't sound like much, right? But you can exile it from your hand instead of casting it or getting it on the battlefield somehow. You exile it from your hand to make a red mana. So it's like a Lotus Petal or a Dark Ritual. It's a mana producing effect, and it's popular with combo decks. Also popular in the, kind of perennial modern strategy of, what did they call it? Blood Moon deck win, or turn 2 Blood Moon free wins, something like that. I can't remember exactly. Sorry, there's a catchy name for this, and I thought I knew it. It's in the back of my mind somewhere. Please comment it if you know what I'm trying to say. But it's like you play this, and maybe any other way to kind of ramp out mana might involve like sacrificing your lands or sacrificing your permanents. But you put eggs into baskets so that you can try to make a Blood Moon on turn 2, and that's your plan A. Your plan B might be Trinisphere on turn 2, and so you're running a whole bunch of those, and then the rest of your deck is like kind of normal looking amount of lands, maybe some interaction, and probably for sure some red and planeswalkers and 6-drop creatures like Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and Inferno Titan. And so that strategy's been around for a while and has a whole bunch of different permutations with like other colors or other things you do besides Blood Moon, or like sometimes you're kind of a faster version. Anyways, so it's also played in Storm sometimes, and other combo decks like I think Griswold brand probably played Spirit Guide, or the recent, Manamorphose into the Birthing Pod type spell that I'm forgetting the name of from the recent Ravnica block.
I looked it up. The catchy name is Free Win Red.
Free Win Red. Thank you. There you go. You can stop typing your comment if it's quick enough. Anyways, so Free Win Red plays it, and also, what's this Simic card now? I'm sorry, everyone. I'm forgetting all the names of every Magic card ever printed, but it's a blue and a green. You sacrifice creature, and then you go find a creature with that convert mana cost +1.
A Neoform?
Neoform. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Neoform, I believe, also plays the Spirit Guide. Anyways, I guess they're just tired of Modern being that turn quick. Like this seems like a really important ban to me, because Simeon Spirit Guide being available is like part of the fabric of the deck building of Modern, and like it establishes how fast the format is, and kind of like is part of what makes Modern in my mind. Spirit Guide is not banned in Modern, but now that's no longer true. So all y'all not playing Spirit Guide and not trying to, I don't know, be part of a fast combo world, your decks got better. I guess this probably makes fair decks better. It might make decks like, it might make Thoughtseize decks actually worse, because there's going to be less kind of fragile combo decks that are revolving around fast mana and a quick problem card.
I have a quick question.
I think it's a big deal that Simeon Spirit Guide is banned.
I have a quick question just because I truly don't know the answer to this. Simeon Spirit Guide from Time Spiral was a color shifted version of Elvish Spirit Guide, which is all the same stats, but you exile it from your hand to add a green.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not even in Modern because it was too old?
Yeah, I think that card is only printed in Alliances.
Okay.
Or whatever the first printing of it. I don't know if it's had a second printing except maybe in like a commander deck. So yes, that is exactly right. It's just not in Modern because it's not in a legal Modern set.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving on. Or go ahead. Yeah. More questions.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. No, Mystic Sanctuary from Eldraine is banned. This is a land that comes into play tapped as long as you control, or comes into play untapped as long as you control 3 or more islands. And then if it enters untapped, you can put an instant sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library.
This just seems fine. What's wrong with this?
Yeah, it's fine as long as you're not putting a cryptic command on top of your library, right? Or a time stretch or whatever. What is it? Time warp. So this one, either through the locky kind of blue sort of combo time taking turns decks, or the blue-white, or sometimes Grixis hard control, deal with all your stuff decks, just helps people get into a repetitive play pattern, and at basically no opportunity cost. So I guess R&D is tired of that. I don't know. Mystic Sanctuary on its own, obviously not the biggest problem, I don't think. So I think this one seems to me the most out of left field.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think we've all really wanted to live the dream and like Mystic Sanctuary for Deprive.
Right, exactly.
Right? That feels really good. And then your opponent Mystic Sanctuaries for Cryptic Command, you're like, oh.
Well, Cryptic Command works too because you can bounce the Mystic Sanctuary with one of the modes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but both of those are things. People have been doing that in Modern, and I'm guessing that Mystic Sanctuary was banned. We could probably even read this, but I think it was probably banned partly just because of all these other bans in Modern. Like, I don't think Mystic Sanctuary was like hard up to be banned next, but just kind of like to help establish the upcoming metagame as a bit more equal. What else? Okay, so we said Field of the Dead, Mystic Sanctuary, the Monkey, Uro. Tybalt's Trickery from
This is from
Kaldheim.
Kaldheim.
Yeah,
I
not too
just
many.
got here.
Yeah, it wasn't around for too long in Modern, and because of Trickery and the other Tybalt card, because of Valky and Trickery, we're getting a rules change as well. So we might as well talk about that now because it's kind of related to this ban. So Cascade is being updated to say, this is a triggered ability that functions only while this spell's on the stack. Cascade means when you cast a spell, comma, exile cards from top of your library until you exile an online card whose converted mana cost is less than the spell's converted mana cost, period. You may cast that spell without paying its mana cost if its converted mana cost is less than this spell's converted mana cost. So that second, since the if clause wasn't there anymore, or wasn't there before, you used to just say exile till you had a spell with a lower CMC, you may cast it, which meant, you could cascade into a Valky and cast a Tybalt, which was a very popular strategy in Legacy, or sorry, in Modern Legacy as well. Yeah, I think Modern and Legacy were both playing the 3 mana cascade spells into a copy of Valky, and if they had a way to accelerate that, maybe they would, but otherwise they're just kind of playing 2 tap lands and having free spells up that cost more than 3, like Force of Will and Misdirection. So they just survive by using their free spells as interaction for 2 turns, and then they cascade into a 7 mana Planeswalker that wins the game for them. But Tybalt's Trickery, similarly, was in Modern. This is a deck list that Martin Juza posted on January 28th, and it's just 3 Emrakul's, 1 copy of Tybalt's Trickery, 4 Violent Outbursts, and 52 lands. So you do have to mulligan. You want to mulligan into your outburst. You have 4 copies of it though, so it's not so bad. You can have no lands in hand, but because you're always generally going to hit a land off every drop. And then the only other spell in your deck with a different name, like the way this works is you cast Violent Outburst on 3, which is a 3 mana cascade spell that just pumps your team and it has cascade. So, and the cards in the spells in your deck with names are Emrakul, Tybalt's Trickery, and Violent Outburst, and there's only 1 Tybalt's Trickery. So you're going to cascade into your Tybalt's Trickery, counter your own Violent Outburst. The remaining spells in your deck are only Violent Outburst or Emrakul the Aeon's Turn. So on turn 3, you cast an Emrakul the Aeon's Turn with Tybalt's Trickery, and then on turn 4 your turn 3 essentially still, your opponent doesn't get a turn 3, you attack for 15 and Annihilator 6. So that's how they do it in Modern.
That sucks so bad.
Pretty nuts, right? It's funny because I thought there was an updated version, but I think I'm just thinking of the Legacy Cascade into Valky thing. But yeah, there is this funny opening part of the game if you chose to play this deck for the 1 month that you could, or not even a month, like 2 weeks or whatever that you could, where you have to mulligan into a Violent Outburst, and also you have to mulligan into a Violent Outburst, and you can't have your Tybalt's Trickery in your hand either. So that makes it a tiny bit harder. But yeah, you're and you also can't, or no, I guess you could have all 4 Tybalt's Trickery. I guess you can't have all 3 Emrakuls in your hand either. So, I'm sure some games, plenty of games probably, if, a reasonable number of people played this deck that it got banned, there must have been several games where people mulled the 0 and then, concede on turn 4 or whatever.
What a change going from a Planeswalker that was so bad it became a joke to this incredibly powerful card.
You got to have an impactful card for 2 weeks, and then we took it away from you because it was too powerful, right?
Yeah, that's all they know how to do with Tybalt. He's one end of the scale or the other.
I found a list on the Magic subreddit of how quickly cards were banned.
Right.
And Tybalt's Trickery is the 3rd fastest card from release to banning.
Oh,
neat.
Can you think of the rest of the top 5?
Lutri?
Oh yeah, Lutri's the same as the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Lutri's was a day 0 ban for Brawl and Commander.
So Mind's Desire was a day 0 ban for Vintage.
6 days.
Oh, it was 6 days. It was the first week. My coworker had told me it was day 0, but I guess 6 days, yeah.
For Legacy and Vintage, yeah.
Right.
Number 3, Tybalt's Trickery.
Okay. So Lutri is actually number 1. That's so neat. Okay, there's 2 more that got banned within the first 2 weeks, eh? Or Tybalt's Trickery is...
just in the top 5. It's actually 14 days and 17 days.
Right, okay. I don't know, actually. Was it Oko?
yeah, that's my guess.
No, Oko's way down the list, actually, at number 8.
What about Treasure Cruise? Because that format wasn't super long, was it?
I want to say Treasure Cruise was around for 2 or 3 weeks at least.
Yeah, okay.
Treasure Cruise was around for longer than that. It's not actually... I've got the top 12 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a hint.
So, okay, number 5, with 17 days before being banned in Standard and Brawl, is also on the list of things we've talked about today, however briefly.
Was it Fielded It? No. Fielded It wasn't.
Omnath.
That's right. Omnath was super fast too. Right, okay. Right.
And number 4, it only took 14 days for it to be banned in Standard, Extended, Legacy, Vintage, and Urza's Block Constructed.
Oh, is it Memory Jar? Or
Memory Jar.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I didn't play back then, but...
Wasn't that an emergency banning? Like the infamous emergency banning at a tournament?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure on the specifics of that one.
That sounds right.
Certainly, I believe that year of Magic was referred to as Combo Summer or Blue Summer or something like there was a, Urza Saga came out and then it was like, okay, this is the deck. And like people had various versions. Like maybe there wasn't day one agreed upon a perfect list, but it was pretty close. Everyone's just like, let's just make all the mana and draw all the cards and do all the stuff and kill our opponent immediately.
Before we move on to Legacy, just because I'm sure people will be curious, number 6 was Luris, and both in Legacy and Vintage for Luris. That was 31 days. Grizzlebrand banned in Commander after 44 days. Mystic Forge banned in Vintage after 45 days. Underworld Breach banned in Legacy after 45 days. Oko banned in Standard and Brawl after 45 days. Lingering Souls banned in Innistrad Block Constructed after 46 days. And then number 10 is Tolarian Academy, Windfall, and Stroke of Genius, 50 days for being banned in Standard, Extended, Legacy, and Vintage. Though Stroke wasn't banned in Standard.
Okay, there you go. The other interesting infographic I saw this week, someone tweeted out just cards banned per year, and the year is the X line.
I saw that.
And then it's just the cards stacked on top of each other. So you see like these cards we were just discussing from Saga Block, like near the left, there's a little space. Then there's all the Mirrodin cards that got banned. Like the next biggest banning per day after this is like 6 cards or something. And they're just artifact lands, I think. Something like that. I'm not sure how many the next most cards banned in one announcement is, but I'm pretty sure this is the most ever in one day. And then, so there's a Mirrodin block, and then there's another space. Then there's Jason Stoneforge by themselves around 2011 or whatever. And then there's another space, and then there's just like giant columns since the Fire Philosophy cards have been coming out, right? It's just like all these cards that have been banned every year. So pretty neat. But I was just talking about this with Jeremy White last night, and it's like, yeah, I think we are in a period of growth here where like we're figuring out the new kind of like life cycle of the Fire Philosophy cards. And I suspect WotC's learning a lot, like, R&D is learning a lot from how these cards are going from development to play and eventually banning for a lot of them. And I'm still actually fairly optimistic that this is going to slow down eventually. We're not going to see as many cards come out that need to be banned within the first month. And we're still going to keep getting great cards. Because the thing is, like, yeah, these cards are getting banned, but these cards are sweet. Like you get to crack packs with these cards in them. And like, they're not the only cards that are sweet. Like you do still get to play really fun cards. Like, look, Questing Beast isn't anywhere close to being banned. And it's like one of the most amazing creatures of all time, right? And like, no one's even looking at it. And like, you still get to play with Questing Beast, and Questing Beast came from the Fire Philosophy too, right? So there's an advantage to playing Magic in this world of not being sure if you're allowed to play the cards you open in your packs, which is obviously harsh too.
I've been drilling down in the comments on that post, and the emergency day 0 memory jar ban. It turns out that in actuality, memory jar was legal for 14 days. But they did banning announcements far less frequently back then. And so after that time, and based on some stuff that was already happening at like the pre-release events, they were like, oh heck, and retroactively added it to a previous ban announcement.
Okay, neat.
So it on paper, it was a day 0 ban. But there was technically time when it was legal.
Right, but they were like, we can't wait till the next ban announcement. This card's off the chain. Magic won't sustain value of this. Cut this all, Jordan.
Do not cut that. It was too funny.
There's no chance she's cutting that. Okay, should we move on? That's all the cards for Modern.
Yeah.
So in Legacy, we have 3 cards banned, and let's talk about them in order of surprise factor. So for me, at least, this is my least surprise card to see gone in any format. It's Oko, Thief of Crowns, now legal in Vintage. Possibly it's restricted. I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, Oko, I guess, has just done enough things in Legacy that people are tired of it. I don't blame them. Anyone have anything to add about that?
Why is it +1?
Right?
Yeah.
Why is it +1?
Similarly to Uro, we've already talked about this one generic, 1 blue, 1 green spell that deserves to be banned in all these formats, and now is. I guess you could probably still play Uro in Legacy. There you go.
People who work in WotC must love blue-green.
Yeah, it's been a great couple of years, obviously, for the Simic mages. Maybe Mark Rosewater is Simic and everybody knows it now. I don't know. Maybe it's Gavin. There's some powerful Simic faction working down there, obviously. Okay, moving on. Arkham's Astrolabe. This card had already been banned in Modern and just kind of fixes your mana and is an artifact and draws a card for 1 mana and lets you play cards together in the same deck that a lot of other cards don't do. So yeah, probably they didn't want to see the consistency of Arkham's Astrolabes everywhere all the time. And, Legacy already has great mana and great artifacts. So I feel like anyone who is relying on Arkham's Astrolabe to do their thing will get over it. Not too surprised to see that one banned either. Did get banned in Modern. And the last card on our list, now, this one is kind of up there with Tybalt's Trickery in terms of being like, a surprise. It's not a brand new card. It's been around for a while, and it's a very good card, but it is a card that costs 1 generic and 1 red, so you don't usually see those cards getting banned. And also, it's a creature, and it doesn't even have an enter the battlefield effect. It's just got trample and a when this attacks effect. To me, this it looks a little bit on paper, right? Like banning Inferno Titan or something, right? Like you're like, wait, why do you have to ban this? It's Dreadhorde Arcanist, and the attack trigger is you may cast target instant or sorcery spell or instant or sorcery card with CMC less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power. And there's just so many good 1 mana spells in Legacy that, although I haven't looked at the deck list in a while, I know, Grixis or blue-red or Temur or even just black-red, you can play Dreadhorde Arcanist with obviously Lightning Bolts and Thoughtseize and then various other interactive cards and just kind of wreck your opponent's day and get a lot of value out of Dreadhorde Arcanist. So I guess that archetype was just too good.
Yeah, that one surprised me as well. Just being like, oh, Dreadhorde Arcanist. Yeah, that's a cool card. Never quite got that to pop off in draft. Why is it banned?
Yeah.
How many combat tricks to pump power are they running in Legacy? Probably 0.
Yeah, I think 0. Or no, they might be on 1 in the Delver version. Sometimes they play that Delve one.
Is this just a way of hitting Delver at kind of while maintaining the character of the deck?
Yeah, I think it just slots into Temur Delver, Grixis Delver pretty well, or you can play a Grixis control strategy with it.
Like just trying to keep one deck under tune its power level without hitting its much more defining cards.
Sorry, right. I understand your question now, right? Like they want to attack the strategy of the Temur Delver deck without completely dismantling it. And so they're like, oh, you had this tool and we want to take that tool away because you're too good with it. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's that's really kind of like the Dreadhorde Arcanist ban is interesting because it's sort of a fine piece of surgery, right? Think of the band as being a hammer that's like, stop all this madness, get this busted card out of here. And this one's more like, well, this card's not exactly busted, for the reasons I just described, right?
We looked at the deck list and chose the cheapest card on it.
Yeah.
Right?
According to the article online, they're like, Dreadhorde Arcanist is real good in Legacy, and without Oko, we think it's going to be even more prominent, so we're also banning that.
Okay. Yeah, reasonable.
I don't hate that, and I think, I don't know if we read it, but that was sort of my suspicion for why they banned Mystic Sanctuary in Modern. It's like, they start off banning Uro and all these formats, and a couple other cards are sort of nuts, like the Oops All Spells cards get banned, or they ban Oko finally in Legacy, and it's like, okay, now let's quickly look at these formats and say, is there anything else that will probably need to get banned right away? Let's just ban it now. So I don't know, this announcement, it does seem kind of like the other thing that's happening here is, R&D or play design or organized play or whichever department is kind of in charge of this. They've probably gotten a little bit better at doing bans, right? They've had all this banning experience over the last 2 years. They're starting to probably really feel their stride. They go to do this ban. They're like, wait, no, we got to put Arcanist on the list too. We got to ban that. So as much as it's not something that I think anyone wants a part of Wizards to be getting good at, maybe it's still kind of nice these days for people to kind of level up. The ban hammerers, the ban carpenters can level up at their hammering.
So that's the bannings. We're going to talk about Strixhaven now.
Yeah, we are.
But very briefly before that, I just wanted to say that they also, in the big reveal stream for all the Strixhaven stuff, announced 2 changes to nomenclature that I wanted to talk about real quick. One is a trimming down of the phrase shuffle your library. It is now just shuffle.
So yes, you have permission to dance at your table.
I'm going to. Obviously we're going to do a joke about that at some point.
Stay tuned for that crap shot. Yeah.
Because they showed, we'll talk more about this in a second, but they showed this alternate art cool card frame Demonic Tutor, which now reads, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So that's just nice. I am surprised that they streamlined that before they figured out an elegant way to streamline when card enters the battlefield, just because it's so wordy comparatively,
and happens about as much. Yeah, I would really like for them to eventually, I don't know if I haven't prepared this speech or whatever, but between triggered abilities, activated abilities, and static abilities, I'd love to see a little symbol to help you remind it, or help new players sort that out. Other games have done similar things, and I think Magic could eventually get there where they find something they like enough to both save on some ink and help visually understand the cards.
And the other thing is mana value, replacing the current terminology of converted mana cost. And I think this is great because I've always wondered, converted from what?
Yeah, it's more like converted into just a number rather than a color symbol.
Yeah.
But yeah, I realized in getting in the same discussion, it's like, that's not the correct word. They want the word absolute. It should have been absolute mana cost before, right? Like,
right.
What's just the number value? And that's what that means, right?
Yeah.
So all this time, we could have been calling it absolute mana cost. Which sounds, like an evil villain.
Yeah. So I don't know when exactly these come into play. I guess whenever Strixhaven releases. But yeah, mana value is now... That's going to be a lot of Oracle text changes.
Yeah, certainly. What do you think of that one?
I think it's fine. It's like... Honestly, it also...
It's shorter.
It's shorter. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well as CMC. But none of the cards ever said CMC. That was just like the parlance.
Are we going to get used to seeing and hearing MV?
MV, I guess.
MV is easier than CMC.
Yeah.
But I will never again think about C&C Music Factory when somebody asks about the CMC of a card. So I feel like that's a small loss.
Aw.
Everybody casts now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's the last time you can think that.
No, it's not. You can't stop me.
That's right. I'll keep thinking it no matter what. I can't help myself.
I mean, like, this probably actually isn't, like, a very huge deal. It probably helps, like, with text size on cards. But, Magic players are still calling it Moto. So, as a community, it's kind of set in its ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's possible we'll just keep saying CMC all the time, but now they're using less ink. So that's a win.
Okay, so now actually Strixhaven. They announced, this was a surprise to me anyway, because I was streaming at the time and people kept coming into chat and being, are you watching the Wizard stream right now? And I'd be like, no, I'm literally playing Sealed. You can see, don't worry about it. So yeah, they announced a bunch of information on Strixhaven, which is very exciting. Kathleen, what did they talk about?
Strixhaven is the School of Mages, and they have revealed the 5 colleges of magic. And you know what? I think there's some with it. I think one of these is going to speak to your soul, whoever you are, wherever you are. So they're all based on well-known color pairs is how I will define it. So your first one is Lorehold, and that is red and white. Otherwise, like most people would call this combination Boros. And they said that Loreholds are diligent researchers and daring adventurers. They're passionate scholars obsessed with history. They explore the past by poring over archaeological artifacts and summoning long dead spirits. And they've got like adorable Loxodons that are like, doing like adventure stuff. And if you look at Lorehold Command, they've got dwarves as well and some sort of flying thing with wings, but it's more like a cat or something like that. It's hard to tell from the card. It looks very fun and cute and, like sort of a PG-13 children's adventure movie in there. Anybody feel like they want to go to the Lorehold College of Magic?
I mean, like, this is very much like the classic adventurer, like, what is your defining characteristic? I'm brave, right? You go to Lorehold. And I just like all of these, how they quite clearly started off with, a traditional Western liberal arts education grounding. And then we're like, what does that look like in magic? So I feel Lorehold starts off, archaeology and history.
Mm-hmm. Indiana Jones is a Lorehold.
Yes, yeah.
Lara Croft?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Prismari, and they are the theater kids of Strixhaven. That's what the Magic website says, and they express themselves with magic. Their motto is express yourself with the elements. And for them, all the world's a stage, and to them, spells are spectacles of raw creativity or meticulous artistic expressions.
Right. Yeah, the fine arts department.
Yeah.
If Strixhaven has a school band, Prismari have the trumpet blast, right? Like... Yeah, these all feel so good to me. This feels warm and fuzzy.
I just like the idea that there's like an orc maybe doing a very serious like thing with like different colors of exploding mana, and it's just like, she's just trying to get the explosion just right or something like that,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But like, I wonder if they also have all of the artifact manipulation, right? Like people talk about like theater and are like, oh yes, it's acting, right? But it's also a lot of like actual physical labor because you need to build the props and the sets. And then you also have people who are like sculptors who have to get their welding tickets, right? So I imagine that there's also that element at play here.
Now, anybody feel like that they would be at home in the Prismari College of Magic?
Yeah, I feel I belong to the Prismari College. I like that the students seem to be involved in like the performance and putting on events, and so that really speaks to me and makes me long for a better time when I can gather together with other humans on stage. Also, I'm a big fan of playing blue-red, so that's sweet.
You have your BFA, right, Nelson?
I do, yeah. I also have a degree from, a fine arts school. I have a music degree from University of Victoria, which I have used to come here and talk about magic cards.
I'm going to wait until I hear all 5 of them, but I'm certainly leaning Prismari at the moment.
Oh.
I'm also a big fan of this commands that we've seen and the splash art for the school, both kind of leaning on what I just learned this week is bisexual lighting, where you have blue and red and purple all splashed on someone. I hadn't heard that term before, but I just think it looks so good.
The Prismari College is definitely the sexiest and most exciting college. Everyone there is having a lot of dramatic stuff happening. And honestly, it sounds exhausting to me, but that's okay because I'm not going there.
Well, you either get excited to have tense sidelong glances at your fellow students in the Prismari College or you don't. And if you don't, then that's fine. We respect that, but I'm all about it.
Coming up next, we have the Quandrix College, and Quandrix mages are ingenious math magicians. They study patterns, fractals, and symmetries to command power over the fundamental forces of nature. Their motto is math is magic, and they are blue-green, so sort of like this similar ground to the Simic in that there's this sort of scientific kind of element, but Simic was a lot more chaotic, and this seems more no, this is we know exactly what we're doing, right?
Yeah, well, the Quandrix are the theoreticians. And this kind of always speaks to me whenever I see this in a fantasy setting, because quite frequently wizards are portrayed like pouring through ancient libraries and looking for artifacts from some previous golden age, instead of exploring, looking to the future, they're frequently looking to the past. Right? So I feel like an affinity for the Quandrix because I did one of my degrees in theoretical chemistry. And, that has nothing to do with the real world whatsoever. And I really appreciated that. Also, the hands in the key art for Quandrix, I just somebody worked really hard on those hands and got them right. They're amazing. Her hands are just, yes.
Actually, I think the key art for this Quandrix mage, and I have some thoughts about that I'll come back to at the end, might be my favorite of all the key art. It's just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Also, their motto being math is magic. I'm I can already hear Boards of Canada track. Music is math.
I honestly do kind of think math is at a certain level magic. It doesn't. No, most people don't understand it at all, but it sort of makes everything we use go, right?
Yeah.
It's not that far off.
Yeah.
I like the kind of underrated part of the green color pie in Magic being, the natural tendency to form patterns and and the fact that all of evolution and expansion of life and stuff is due to math, right? It has to do with where an entity could get the most of the resource it's trying to collect, right? That's the direction you move as you're growing through cycles of life forms, right? And we think of green and Magic as mostly being about in a Johnny's Naya jungle, right? It's it's about chaos, or it's about at Korea there's a big beast eating a smaller beast, and then a third beast that's bigger than both of them shows up, and it's all fighting and war. And it's well, part of green is just what happens when things are basically stable, and what that means and what the crystals look like and stuff.
Yeah, the dizzying, tantalizing complexity of the universe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it feels like blue, but it's green, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The laws of the universe are wonderful.
God, they really hit it out of the park with Quandrix, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we must move on to our next College of Magic. My goodness, it's Silver Quill. Silver Quills wield the magic of words, from inspiring battle poetry to biting arcane insults, and one hopes, hilarious diatribes. Stylish, intimidating, and tirelessly competitive, these mages are born leaders with a razor-sharp wit and natural charisma that can be used for good or ill. Their motto is sharper style, sharper wit. I was reading this and I was I am seen when I got here. I don't think I could live up to our very stylish Silver Quill mage, but I'm in there in the back also wearing black. Refining the art of comedy, which can be a weapon.
Okay, say it with me, everybody. Kathleen, your undercut did look that good.
Yes. Yeah, your hair has always looked this good.
It's true.
I know you can't see it. That's become abundantly clear, but it looked just as good as this ink-wielding magician in the splash art.
Don't you just want to be that person though? He looks so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have a degree in English lit, and like, yes, yes, the liberal arts, right? Like, I feel validated.
Yeah.
I definitely want to like go to the bar with the Silver Quill mages.
You know, you never want to give a seminar to them. You always want them to deliver a seminar to you.
Yeah, it's like everyone at Strixhaven might be really smart, but it seems like the Silver Quill students are the ones who can most clearly express how smart they are and like, talk you in circles or just teach you about something that you enjoy.
Yeah, right. And like, you graduate from Silver Quill and you go out into the multiverse looking for a job and you have an interview and they're like, so you went to Silver Quill? And you explain yes. And they're like, so what can you do?
Right.
Right. Like we're looking at hiring, maybe hiring a Lorehold magician for this role. And you're like, so what can you do? And you're like, well, I can assimilate information really quickly. I can read really fast and, learn quickly, and I can also express myself accurately. And they're like, yeah, what does that mean?
I'm great at writing reports.
I've had
Right.
that interview, right? And then they hire someone and they have to hire somebody else to edit for them. And it's just like, but you could have had me.
Right. But you're in the interview and the person who needs to hire you is like, okay, so explain it like I'm 5. And then you do. And then you're like, okay, explain it like I'm 3.
Nobody appreciates this skill set.
No, they really don't. I feel like the Silver Quills often, like, they look great, but most of the time they're just like, they're just like, no, sorry, like, I'm writing. Leave me alone. Like, I feel like the Silver Quill are actually kind of like introverted. Their parties are not that wild, but there's a lot of coffee. I think I'm projecting, honestly, at this point.
Like, if you've ever been, like, maybe just a little hammered during a lecture.
The sweat. I completely understand this.
Sharper wit.
And I love this interpretation of black in magic. Like, ambitious, incisive, and
stylish,
and not, like, hateful or selfish.
Or putrid.
It looks like they might be petty. Like, I feel like if you date someone from Silver Quill and then you dump them and then you're still in the same class, that's bad for you.
Oh, yeah.
Also, they're all wearing like knee length or ankle length trench coats
this season.
Yeah. And there's like 4 suns out in the picture. So it's like no matter what, clearly they're just always wearing black. But I'm hoping we get to see some sweet tattoos if like their magic tends to be related to ink.
Oh, yeah. It looks like he might have a tattoo on the side of his head, actually.
Perfect.
I'm a big fan of Silver Quill. But we must move on to Witherbloom. Witherblooms are goth biomagers. Now, I would say that some of these other, like, I would say Silver Quills are also goths. But these are goth biomagers. They draw power from the essence of living beings, and whether that means enhancing nature or exploiting it. Witherbloom mages are most at home riding zombie crocs, picking herbs for potions, and hanging out in their swamp making grim jokes. Their motto is, get your hands dirty.
Yeah, like, so these are the physical sciences, right? Whereas the Quandrix are more like the laboratory or the theoretical sciences. The Witherblooms are like the geologists who carry their lunch in like a plastic bag that they put in the small of their back, right? So it's warm when they stop to eat it. Which is literally something a geologist friend of mine told me that they did. This is the delight of the physical world.
This is, if anyone's ever fantasized about becoming a bog witch, this is where you go to school for it. Right?
Yeah, like you never call it dirt with a Witherbloom. Dirt, it's not dirt, it's soil. And it's a matrix of about 1 billion different elements, and don't ever call it dirt.
Yeah,
right?
This is potential.
Earth if you must.
Yeah.
But never dirt.
So, Graham, you went into this cold.
Yeah.
Where are you feeling yourself right now?
I definitely see the appeal of the Silver Quill. I don't think I'm stylish enough. And it also doesn't quite land for me. I think it's tough, actually. But I think I am a little bit more Prismari than Silver Quill. If you're looking at what school of the college we're going to. I mean, I was in visual art as well. And yeah, that seems correct. This is awesome. And I'm very excited about this set and the stuff that we'll get to do with it. I'm also excited about the things we'll get to open.
Ah, yes.
Because they announced this thing called the Mystical Archive, which is similar to the masterpieces or the inventions and things that we've seen in the past. So it's reprints of cards with new art and these awesome looking borders. But the thing is, these are just in every pack.
There's one in every
I'm
pack.
so excited for these. I really am. Also, the Japanese ones that they've shown.
I was going to say, yeah. So, like, first of all, what I love, these are attainable. These are gettable. There's one of these in every pack. this is such a huge improvement for getting these cool cards over the stuff they've done previously. And then, yeah, just for fun, I guess Magic is huge in Japan. There's a whole different collection just for Japan, which are gorgeous. They've only spoiled 3 of them, but the Opt especially is astonishingly pretty. And you will be able to get these in the English language collector boosters. Every collector booster will have one of the Japanese Mystical Archive cards.
Oh.
I think I'm gonna have to buy a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think they finally got me. They got me.
These are gorgeous.
If they're in every pack of the Japanese set, like that should mean good things for the secondary market. Like if you just want to own these, if they're going in every pack, like you're not going to have to pay masterpiece prices, I don't think. But yeah, very exciting.
That's exciting, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just so thrilled with Strixhaven. They've gone back to the guilds kind of model of inviting players to associate very strongly with these color identities and giving them a strong personality and this kind of like nerd horoscope vein, right? Of like, what's your Myers-Briggs type or something. This has like that same very strong feel of wanting to belong to something. And I mean, I can't argue with its potency because I want merch. I want merch. Right, if I don't have a Moleskine embossed with the Silver Quill logo, then what the hell is even going on here, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's nice that it gives people because the Ravnica guilds were set up a very long time ago, and so newer players might see themselves a bit represented here, where they're not really familiar with what Ravnica is and stuff like that. They'll just see those logos being tossed around and stuff, and also like they're a little different. Like if you like white black, but you never wanted to associate yourself with like a band of like reprehensible, ghoulish undead bankers, maybe you didn't want to be like, Orzhov life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? Like the Ravnican guilds are great, but they're from a very kind of like unpleasant world, right? Like they're all dysfunctional.
Ravnica's scary.
Kind of. They all have kind of a low regard for life. They're entertaining. They're really well, like they have strong personalities and I like them a lot. But Strixhaven feels like a much healthier representation of these color identities.
The guilds are all hierarchical. They all have a leader and they all have a hierarchy. And the foot soldiers are only really, taken care of, I think, in like the Boros and the Selesnya. Like it's always a crime to kill a Wojak. And like, Selesnya guild kind of feels like a happy family, but you don't want to work for the Azorius. Like those people are like cops and like, bureaucrats that have to work like really long hours.
Yeah, you don't want to be like, you don't actually want to be like a Demir spy, like killing people and like stealing their thoughts.
No, I want to go on a pub crawl with some lorehounds.
Yeah, no, the colleges feel more like, these are student body organizations, and yeah, they seem really inviting. And I want to say they did a pretty good job of separating the identities. We talked about how a bit. The only one that seems kind of similar to me is the Witherbloom. Feel a bit like the Golgari. There's just maybe only so many directions you can go with the kind of magic that they're using if these are the 2 colors associated. But all 4 of these don't feel too familiar. You feel like new places that we can be within these combinations of colors.
Like the hands in the key art are all so good. Like the Silver Quill hands, it's just all so good. Whoever did it, kudos.
And if you would like to take your very good hands and put magic cards in them, I would recommend going to cardkingdom.com. They sponsor this show, and if you go to cardkingdom.com/LRR, that's the place to be. Please do give them a visit. We appreciate it. And also, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. That's going to have to be it for this episode. Again, next time we will be talking about more mythical origins of Kaldheim. The Kaldheim nicknames website is up at lrr.cc/nicknames. Check that out. And I can't wait to talk more about Strixhaven in the future. So until next time, I have been Graham, joined by Cameron.
Hello. Goodbye.
Nelson.
Thanks for being here.
Kathleen.
I was here too.
James around the card reader. Jordan edits these. Heather gets them online. Thanks everybody for watching and listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.